are live. WeatherBrains 5:15 for November 30th. End of the hurricane season today.
Bingo.
That magical time of the show, the pre-show here, where we do three things. We share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and say outrageous things. The actual show begins in about 10 minutes. You YouTubers, if you want to scrub past this, but if you're watching it live, you can't do that. If you can do that when it's live, you're good.
Excellent.
We are about to begin our 30 days of live shots in a row. It's Toys for Tots season, Brian. I love Toys for Tots. So I'll be out.
Am I going to have to be on standby at any of those times?
I think we have the rookie in here. I think you're okay. I think the next time I'll be in the studio is going to be in January.
Yeah, but she gets 2 days off a week, doesn't she?
She doesn't need days off. She's young.
Oh, okay.
Now we've got an event at the Comedy Club this week. Then we've got an event at with Applebee's. Ooh. And then Thursday I am the Grand Marshal. I do one per year.
And you just froze. So much for the bandwidth.
One Christmas parade. See, we just had a bandwidth drop. Gosh.
Yep. You froze.
It just stops. And the IT guys, they get like offended if you try and bring it up to them. And I understand they're proud of their network and everything, but it is what it is. I mean, we're not making this stuff up. So.
Right.
So who invited our guest on here? I didn't do that. Can you guys invite guests?
Did. Yeah, isn't that cool?
I thought only the proprietor of the Hangout here could do that. Wow, that's good.
No, I actually learned this from Iowa WX.
Okay, well,
I can actually do it.
Well, there you go. Well, that certainly takes the pressure off me. Yeah. So anyway, when the audio show drops, it's a nightmare trying to figure out where these drops are. When my internet bandwidth goes away, we can't hear anything on the show. I mean, we hear nothing but me. I mean, obviously my track is recorded, but so what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to start pricing bandwidth, and I'm just going to order it myself, just for me, myself, and I. And I will have a pipe going to my little closet here that nobody else can use. I will lock down a Wi-Fi. I'll put a Apple Extreme router, the 802.11ac, and hey, sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Yep.
And quite frankly, there's going to be a time where I'm on television back here doing tornado coverage, and Brian is going to be in the Jeep Chaser, and he's going to have a live stream of a large wedge tornado that could kill massive amounts of people, and I can't have that going down because of this jabroni Wi-Fi network. I cannot do that.
Right.
So if it takes me paying for the bandwidth out of my own pocket, I will pay for the bandwidth out of my own pocket. But again, I understand you've got to do some bandwidth throttle. You can't have every clown in this building watching YouTube videos of cats at Christmas. You can't do that. And I understand the need, because like they feed a 30-minute sports show in 1080p HD to another master control here in town via the internet. They do that every night. There's a lot of things that has to be done with this bandwidth, but we have to be high priority here. And the people that set the network up, they're coming in from a situation where they don't do local news. They don't understand this. And but again, hang on. I said something. Oh, this is great.
Is that a response to your? We can't quite read it.
I understand you got to do some bandwidth, Prada. You can't ever, cloud this building.
So apparently I said, "Hey Siri," and it turned my phone on. And Siri was trying to figure out what in the world is this clown talking to me about. It says, "I'm sorry, I don't understand," and then it repeats back all these things I was saying here. But anyway, I'll get off that subject. So I'm seeing a
But
regular.
did she know what a jabroni was? That was the question.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. Let's see if you know. What is a jabroni?
Here's some information.
A jabroni, in professional wrestling slang, is a term that describes a losing performance in a wrestling match. It is derived from the euphemism doing one's job, which was employed to protect kayfabe. The term can be used in a number of ways. When a wrestler is booked to lose a match, that wrestler is described as a jabroni. See, you learn a lot on this show. So there. Wow, so like we're all here. We're just waiting on the
Except
television.
for Willie Dry. Yeah.
Hey, Tyler,
He
can you
hasn't
hear
come
us?
along yet.
Yes, I can. You sound great. How about myself?
Okay,
sound
we can
great,
only
too.
see your picture, but your audio's fine. So, do you have a camera or no camera?
No camera tonight.
Okay, I think we should all blank ourselves out and just turn off like that.
Yeah,
that
works for me.
I look a whole lot better with no camera. And Aubrey has cousin Eddie and the family to deal with tonight.
Otherwise known as Dan Mullen.
What?
Don't you think Dan Mullen looks like cousin Eddie?
Maybe he needs to. I don't know. I guess if he had the wife beater shirt and the white shoes, maybe a little bit of that. So I was over there Saturday night and didn't get a chance to speak with Dan, but I talked to some of the players and had a great time. Love coming to Starkville. We had a ball. We had more fun. The game was not
Think
the
he'll be the
best.
next coach at Georgia?
From what I saw on the sports, and I don't know, I ain't got time to listen to this stuff, but it looks like the Alabama defensive guy is going to Georgia.
Yeah.
And then Mullen might go to Georgia. I don't know. Mullen's stock dropped after they lost to Ole Miss, but their offensive line was just injured. They were decimated by injuries. There wasn't much they could do about that. Had a couple of they didn't have those two turnovers in the first half. They would have won the game anyway. But we'll see. I don't do sports, but goodness gracious, we do picks of the week. We do football picks every Friday night. Since my heart was broken, I was shattered, crushed like a bug on a windshield by ESPN that just blew me off.
Mm-hmm.
No, not to be the guest picker. We started doing our own picks on Friday nights on Facebook Live. I mean, who needs ESPN? And Dave Baird, the news anchor guy here, this guy, he was seconds away from being 13-0 with his picks. He missed the Stanford Notre Dame game. He was 12-1. I mean, this guy.
Wow.
We decided we're going to find some bookie and get rich off this guy. We're going to take his picks, and every week he's good. I mean, the guy is really good at this. So we finally have a purpose for Dave Baird.
He'll charge you a commission.
He probably will. One time I actually worked. This was way back years ago. I mean, I was as young as Aubrey. This was a long time ago. And
I'm not that young.
I went with a news anchor I worked with. This was literally in 1980. We went to these dog races. I don't know if you've ever been to a dog track. And I didn't wager a cent. But this guy was a really big gambler. I mean, he would gamble $10,000 on Monday Night Football. This guy was really heavy into it.
Whoa.
But I picked the dog races for him, and because I'd acquired some skill at that, and he tipped me $1,000. Wow! So that was the greatest night ever. You go down there, you don't gamble, you get $1,000. I was just
out ahead.
But that was ages ago. All right, Willie, can you hear us?
Yeah. I'm here, Jen.
Okay. Have you got a camera or no camera?
Oh, I thought I had a camera this afternoon.
Who took Willie's camera? Give it back, Brian.
I'll let you borrow mine here.
Yeah.
No, Bill and I were doing fine this afternoon when we checked everything out. Technology's great when it works.
Hey, look what's on TV up there.
Charlie Brown.
Charlie Brown Christmas is on television right now. Wow.
That means WeatherBrains will have low ratings tonight.
Oh man.
Just for the first 30 minutes. It's over at 9 o'clock.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. In the other monitor is our weather channel, and when I see us pop up in that, which should be about 30 seconds out, I know that we can go. So that's what I do. Those are the two channels I watch: the main channel and then the weather channel we have here. And rarely do I ever care. This is awesome. This is just awesome.
I guess you were right, Linus. I shouldn't have picked this little tree.
Oh man, what a great show! This warms my heart.
How long have you been in that office now?
Since the Civil War.
And Kevin is here. Kevin?
Yeah. How long have you been in that office now?
Hey, who was that talking just a second ago? Is that Willie?
I said the Civil War.
Hey, Willie, say something. Give us a few words there. Give me an audio check.
Can you not see me yet, Jim?
No, that's fine. Tyler, give me an audio check real quick.
I'm here.
Okay. I think we're all guys. I thought somebody's audio was kind of muffled, like their mic was under their armpit.
I think it was Kevin's.
Have Kevin. Yeah, do Kevin.
Am I better now?
Oh,
No.
it is Kevin. Yeah.
It's like it's in your pocket or something.
Like it's under your armpit.
Oh, he's walking away. Now you made him mad, James.
We've offended him. Now Kevin's usually got really nice audio.
That's all right. Kevin told me the check was in the mail. I don't believe him.
We think Dr. John is going to be a little late. He's got some things going on tonight, but we can almost get this thing started here. So
I'll have to leave early tonight. I'm in the guest bedroom where the parents are staying.
How about now?
Clean. What'd you do?
Well, things.
Have you tried turning it off and on again? Off and on again. Off and on again.
I was asking how long you've been in that office now, James.
Obviously too long. I've been in this. What happened? We used to have that little area in the studio that kind of was closed off by some plexiglass, and it really wasn't soundproof.
I remember seeing that. That was a long
and I do so much radio that just wasn't working. And I'm doing these internet videos, and I'm doing WeatherBrains, and I had to find a place, and I found this closet, and nobody was. Bill Hardikoff used to work in here, who runs the Weather Factory, and Bill now has an office like a block down the street, so he's not in the building anymore. So I just took over Bill's old closet, and it's just fantastic. All right, let's get this sucker going here. Stand by. We are going to roll. And we are going to roll. Here we go in. Oh, and by the way, again, for everybody, most people listen, and if you need to do something that involves, noises like, beating whatever, just mute your mic, and that would be awesome. But all the hate mail when the audio is bad comes to me. So here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time now for the weekly podcast all about weather, WeatherBrains, episode number 515. Oh, yes. Oh, man, this is so good. I cannot help but play this song. I'm watching on my monitor in front of me a Charlie Brown Christmas as we are hitting the air tonight. This is for November 30th, 2015. It's on my channel, which is ABC, and this soundtrack is just too good. Vince Guaraldi, wow. Love this time of the year, love that music. But thank you for joining us. We are here to talk about weather, our favorite topic, and we have, looks like Dr. John might be coming a little later. Maybe he's out tonight. Nate says he's lost his voice. But we have Aubrey here for a very short time. Aubrey, you have a house full of guests, I understand?
Yes, my parents are in town, and they were supposed to leave, but they are staying several extra days now.
Oh boy, they're not driving an RV out in your parking lot like Cousin Eddie, are they?
No, they're actually looking at other areas around where I live. They're both retired, newly retired, and they're both looking at areas around where I live to move in maybe a year or two. So instead of going down and staying, they're just going to do day trips from here. So.
Okay. Well, listen. Just take off when you have to take off.
Okay.
But if you got any email to read, if you do, we'll roll the email segment here before you leave here in just a second. So.
Yeah. Give me a second to pull it up.
Yeah.
I've been out all weekend, so.
Yeah. We'll go around the horn here, and then we'll do an email segment early so Aubrey can get out when she needs to get out. Okay. Kevin Selly looks especially cranky tonight.
Well, that's not. What kind of introduction is that?
Well, I looked at your. We can see these little preview boxes down here, and you just looked like you were cranky. I mean,
I was squinting. I didn't have my glasses on. I was trying to do some actual computer work over here, so I was squinting. So I'm not cranky. I'm cold.
So you were gone last week with tornadoes, and now you're in the deep freeze, huh?
I had some training one week. I don't remember the other week. Yeah, I've been sick since before Thanksgiving, so that may make me look cranky. But
wow.
Boy, it's been big here. I'll give you some stats here. We did 4.22 over the holiday weekend. This is rainfall. We're at 5.16, I think, on the month. Remember, back in May, we were 17 inches, which set a May record in Wichita Falls. And now we're chasing the all-time annual record. We're 1.83 away from setting an all-time Wichita Falls record, which goes back to 1915. So how's that?
This started when you moved there. I mean, they were in this incredible drought.
Yeah. And I'm taking credit for it. And the lakes, the reservoirs, we have two primary reservoirs and a little recreational lake that have gone, for the second time in a year, have gone to 100% full. Little Lake Wichita is over the spillway. The other two are lapping over the spillway as well. But some of those, and I'd have to go back and double check, but some of those have not been over the spillway, I think, in over a decade.
Wow! Well, congratulations.
Well, thank you. I'm really tired after all of the creating.
I was say you're tired, you're sick, you're worn out.
So, Kevin, is there any truth that you'll be going to the ABC affiliate in Bakersfield?
Yeah, anybody that needs drought fixing, I'm available.
Yeah, call Kevin. He's got that rain stick.
Yeah, we came through most of the. Rick got hit with more of the ice than our northwestern counties did, but most of Rick's western, I guess, CWA, even into Oak City. I don't know. I was sick all weekend, Rick. Did you get ice in Oak City too? I wasn't watching.
Yes, yeah, we did in the west side of Oklahoma City. Just west of, you may have heard of a little town called El Reno.
I saw pictures of it there. Yeah.
But they seem to have had a streak of bad luck here. They're the new Moore, maybe, I don't know. But they got slammed, and there's probably 70,000 plus customers still without power since early Saturday morning from that ice storm. We were here a week ago talking about, the stream of moisture coming in and all this rain we're going to get, and it happened. We got a pretty significant ice storm over parts of just west of the core of the Oklahoma City metro area.
Yeah,
I'll not be going to the NBC affiliate in El Reno, just in case.
So tell me about the Oklahoma State game, Rick, up in Stillwater. It looks like the game went on. Were there any issues with travel up there to the game?
I don't think so. No, most of the impacts were west of I-35 and west of Oklahoma City. They had some light rain up there. It was 34 degrees during most of the game. No big deal. And like I said, any kind of weather favors the Sooners, and they got it done. So we're getting closer to this, maybe running into you guys somewhere down the road here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I was in Starkville for the Egg Bowl, and my team got flushed down the toilet in the first half. But so it goes. So, we'll talk college football here in a second. Brian Peters, you're a Florida State man. Your team took care of Florida over the weekend.
Absolutely, yes. I completely don't understand Nick Saban's concern about Florida. I didn't think they looked all that good, but Florida State looked better. So go Noles!
What is that weird noise? It's like somebody sharpening a knife.
Sorry, that's my husband. He's wrapping up a package for our business. So that's the the cellophane wrap thing.
Yeah, it makes sense now. Is it like somebody with a knife sharpener, like Jed Clampett whittling or something?
I thought it was a snow shovel. Sounds like one of those radio station games with a secret sound.
Yeah, the secret sound.
What is the secret sound?
I guess the door isn't fully closed. I'll close the door to you in a second.
Wow, that was awesome. No, Brian, Florida State made Florida look like a one-legged man in a butt-kicking contest. Wow.
Yeah, I know it. I thought it was interesting that one of the key players on the Florida team originally committed to Florida State and went with Florida, and the key guy on the Florida State team originally committed for Florida and went for Florida State. Kind of strange.
Wow. So what bowl game will Florida State go to?
That I'm not sure. Depending on which poll you look at, we've moved up to 9 or 10. So.
All right. Well, before we bring in Bill and our guests, since Aubrey is here, I thought we would just check to see if by chance anything just might be in the good old inbox.
Letters. We get letters. We get stacks and stacks of letters.
Yep, and we have some letters, and I'm trying to get to it. Apparently my mouse is deciding not to work tonight, so we will pull up. There we go. First one is from Michael Hansen, who listens. Need to travel on the job once in a while. The podcast is perfect for listening. And Michael says that he missed his life's calling for sure. He thinks it might be a little bit too late of a start for him, but we appreciate you listening or watching. And Michael's from Billings, Montana. I did a Google search for the Weather Podcast, been listening ever since, and he likes the stories on the tornado aftermaths. They're fascinating, heartwarming, and heart-wrenching, and I have to agree. So the next one is from Jonathan Thompson. Let me get over there. Come on. I don't know what's wrong with my mouse. All right. So Jonathan Thompson sent in a wonderful link, and the link. Oh, there's another email coming in, and let me get down to his email. Bear with me.
Aubrey has so much email coming in, it's just like she's having a hard time keeping up with it.
I was just online shopping a little bit ago, and I didn't have any problems, so I don't know what
Cyber Monday.
Yeah, I didn't shop that much. All right, so Jonathan sent us a link. The title is Meet the Midwestern Pilots Who Risk Their Lives to Change the Weather, and there's some really great images in there, and it's about pilots who do cloud seeding to prevent hail for some farmers in the Midwest, because that large hail can really cause a lot of damage. And Dr. John Scala said that he flew with Hans in 1993 during a field project, and they seeded Cumulus congestus with a beech duke and monitor the future growth with a 5-centimeter radar. So, so Jonathan, thank you very much for that article. It's actually a really interesting article. And from our friend Ellie Morrison in Canada, I don't know if we've discussed this yet, but where Al Roker went after the Wake Up with Al show. Curious to know the thoughts on the WeatherBrains panelists of the creation of the new mobile show that's exclusively for weather apps, and is it a sign of what's to come in broadcasting? And we also have another email from Ewan Short from Eltham, Victoria, Australia, and Ewan says that the chemtrail sound gets him every time, and search for weather on the podcast. Just for you. And he's starting a Master's of Atmospheric Science at Melbourne University in Australia next year. So good luck with that. So thank you very much for sending in all your emails, all your links, your guest suggestions, and for filling out your survey. We'd love to hear how you found us and what you think about the show. Just send those to email@weatherbrains.com. You can also find us on the Facebook and the Twitter. And can you still hear my husband wrapping this thing?
Oh, yeah.
Snow.
Yeah, no, it does sound like he's shoveling snow. Now, Kevin.
He's all the way in the other room on the other side of the house, and I have the door closed.
Send him to the next state. Maybe we'll get rid of him. So for those that cannot see, Kevin, you have an image up. That is, describe this picture.
I tweeted it, so you can go to my Twitter feed, Kevin Selly, if you're later in the week here. I don't know if it's real. I don't know where it came from. It's one of those things, it was shared 1 million times on social media, but I don't care. Usually I'm pretty skeptical on pictures, but this one is just cool. It is.
Hey, Rick, is that real?
It's real. I don't know for sure where it came from, though. I've
Yeah.
seen it attributed to different places. It popped up as being in Oklahoma somewhere, but I haven't had a chance to research it. But
Well, for those who can't go, it's a speed limit sign that got coated with ice on the front and a number of icicles hanging off the bottom, and then that coating got some liquid behind it, and the whole thing with the image of speed limit 25 slid down about 3/4 of the way, and it's hanging from the sign, and it's really. Just go to my Twitter feed. It's pretty cool.
I've seen images similar to that from Oklahoma. I believe that is real. I don't think that's a Photoshop job.
The Ellie's note about that Aubrey read about the Al Roker thing, that's worth it too. I guess I should make that my pick of the week. I'll make that my pick of the week. But it's Dave Clark was on the show and talked about going over the top beyond cable and creating mobile specific or direct to consumer specific programs and whatnot. But that's what that article is. It's really good.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. We'll put these on weatherbrains.com. Bill Murray is going to bring in our guests. Bill, your Alabama Crimson Tide was the winner against Auburn University. Uh-oh.
Bill's not moving.
Boy, Bill, hello.
He's kind of moving.
He's moving.
Kind of moving.
Okay. How about now?
Yep.
Bill, you okay?
Now, Tyler knows I was moving slow today, but this is ridiculous.
You're almost lifelike, Bill.
I'm kind of like you, Kevin, with this cold, and I really was worried about my ability to even be here tonight. After talking to Tyler today, he probably was worried about it too. But, yeah, I'm finally here, James, I think. So
we'll bring our guests in if you can make it. Go.
Yeah, James, we got two guests tonight. First, we're going to start off. Our guest panelist tonight appeared back on Labor Day, if you remember, a special show talking about the 1935 Labor Day hurricane, and he is Willie Dry. He's got a new book out about the real estate boom of the 1920s in Florida, and of course, that story is affected by hurricanes. So, Willie, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Bill. It's good to be here. And if I can put in a plug, since you were talking college football, for my North Carolina Tar Heels, who are now ranked 8th, and we're finally making a showing in a sport that involves something other than a round ball. So maybe we'll be around on New Year's Day.
So the question, Willie, is this: are you going to make Florida State look like a one-legged man in a butt-kicking contest in the ACC championship game?
Well, that would be Clemson that will be playing.
Oh, that's right, Clemson. Florida State's not in that game. That's right. So
That's right.
Clemson, will you make Clemson look that way?
I hope so.
Yes.
I hope so too. Clemson has a very good team. Frankly, I'm surprised at how well the Heels have done this year, but they've won 11 straight, which is unprecedented in Chapel Hill. Usually, you think of that associated with a basketball team, so it's kind of unusual to be following football this time of year.
And let me make one logistical point here, Bill, before you pick it up. For those that are watching the show via YouTube or a live stream, we do not have a camera for Willie, and we do not have a camera for Tyler, or they are sitting in a very, very dark room. So we know a lot of people just listen to the show. This is a core audio podcast, but we do know a lot of people are watching, so we apologize for that, but just imagine their faces. It's theater of the mind.
Yeah, and Willie, we're going to come back and talk about your book in just a little bit, but feel free to jump in anytime with our guest tonight, and we'll talk in just a little bit. Our guest tonight has a plane to catch early in the morning, and so we want to get him in and make sure he gets out of here early tonight, but he is the executive director at the Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team. Tyler Radford, welcome to WeatherBrains.
Yeah, Bill, thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here, and just the last 5 or 10 minutes of hearing everyone talk is probably the most fun I've had all day, so I'm excited to be on the show tonight.
Wow.
Well, we pity you, Tyler. So
that's really sad.
This is the highlight of your day. So
Tyler needs to get out a little more often.
Well, it sure is fun to have you on the show, so thank you for joining us tonight. But tell us what HOT is, Tyler.
Sure. So we're the Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team, otherwise known as HOT. It's our name is a bit unwieldy, so we like to go by HOT for short. What we do in a nutshell is create maps for disaster. So when disaster strikes anywhere around the world, we mobilize a global team of volunteers who come together to create maps of these places who previously didn't exist on any map.
Uh-oh. Did Bill go away? Hello, Bill. Wow. No audio from Bill?
No, he just
Bill's
dropped out.
gone. He just hung out. He just hung up on us. Yeah, Bill. For those who don't know, he's using a Commodore 64, and from time to time, that 1200 baud modem is just not quite pushing enough bits here. So he's going to rejoin us here in just a second. And it's a good thing I caught that. I almost had to run to the studio for just a second because I got the proverbial note that I'm the lead story tonight at 10 because it's going to rain tomorrow. I've decided if we have dew, if we have fog, if we have drizzle, I am the lead story on the late news. So
if it's clear.
over there. Yeah, if it's clear, if the sun is shining too brightly, if the sun angle is too low, if there's any dust in the atmosphere. So, Bill, try it again. We totally lost you. You beamed up. Oh, and we still got nothing. So you know what that means? We've got to do this.
Have you tried turning it off and on again? Off and on again. Off and on again. Have you tried turning it off and on again? That normally does the trick.
And he just totally this time. He just totally went away this time. So, all right, Bill, try it now.
All right, how about now?
All right, you're there. Go.
Okay, good. Well, third time's a charm. So Tyler, this National Geographic World Map I have back here, I would figure that the National Geographic Society had every dirt road in Nepal completely mapped and ready for everybody to use, and I guess that's not true, huh?
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Bill. So the map behind you, and I love the map, by the way, it's pretty good when you look at it sort of from a distance at the country level, but when you get down a little bit further into the detail, that's where you'll see that there's literally thousands of places around the world that still don't exist on any map. So, part of our name, Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team, you have the word OpenStreetMap in there. So I just want to explain for all your listeners, what is that? What is OpenStreetMap exactly? Just as an analogy, imagine if the place where you lived didn't exist on any map. And then imagine if you could say, well, wait a minute there, I see my house, I see a satellite image of my house, and I see my street, and there's my local school or my place of worship. And you could add those things to the map. Essentially, that's what OpenStreetMap is. It's a global map of the entire world that people can actually log on and make changes online. So if they see something they don't like, or if they see something that's missing, they can go in and actually change it. And the power of OpenStreetMap is that we have more than 2 million volunteers doing this work throughout the world. So with those combined changes that are happening every day, we have the ability to create some really highly detailed and comprehensive maps of places that have never previously been mapped or never existed on any map.
So Tyler, did you say 2 million with an M volunteers?
Yeah, that's right, Bill. So there's around just over now 2 million OpenStreetMap users who are working on mapping things in their countries or even in other countries around the world. So you're not limited to mapping sort of the place where you live. You can actually log on and look at satellite images and actually map places that you're interested in or that you might be interested in helping out during a disaster. And I can talk more about how that works.
And that's how I came to find out about you, is during Hurricane Patricia, some of the work you guys were doing in the area around Manzanillo, Mexico, came to light. And I was in an Uber a couple of Sundays ago in New Orleans, and the cab driver was talking, and he starts telling me that he's going to build a bed and breakfast in Manzanillo, Mexico. And James, if you remember, that's the place where John Olshew found the guy with the webcam as the hurricane was coming in. And didn't seem to be too concerned about it, and apparently the area wasn't too severely damaged. But tell us what you guys did in the aftermath, or maybe in the days leading up to the hurricane and in the time afterward. Tyler, what did you do to help?
Sure. So what HOT does is, I mentioned there's 2 million OpenStreetMap volunteers. We're a nonprofit organization based in the United States, but what we really do is mobilize those volunteers for crisis and disaster mapping. And so the day before Hurricane Patricia made landfall, what we did is we put out a call to our global volunteer force, and we'd asked them to come together, and we actually had several people within our community who are known as activators. And on behalf of our organization, they actually do what's called a disaster activation, where they start setting up a specific mapping project. In this case, it was on the Pacific coast of Mexico. And we, based on weather reports and based on other information we were getting from response agencies on the ground, we actually plotted out an area that needed to be mapped. And then we had hundreds of volunteers come together who were looking at satellite images from their home computers or from their workplace and tracing what they saw in those satellite images onto the map. So people could see the buildings in the images they were looking at, and they would trace those buildings and trace the roads. And then those maps get used by disaster responders on the ground to determine where to send people, where to send supplies, where to send resources. So really, without a map, it makes responding to a disaster much more difficult.
And Tyler, your background is in emergency management and disaster response, those sort of things. Talk about some of the things that you've done in your past career that prepared you for this project.
Yeah, sure. Prior to working with the Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team, I also led a team here in New York after Hurricane Sandy with the American Red Cross, which was called the Community Engagement and Community Recovery Efforts. So after New York was hit pretty hard by Hurricane Sandy, our team worked to engage the many communities in New York who were affected, because really disaster response really starts and ends at the community level. And often the people who are responding first are neighbors helping other neighbors, and folks from local religious and faith groups helping others in their own community. So the Red Cross was interested in working with those groups and making connections at the community level, and so our team really worked throughout New York to help make those connections and help make sure the groups had what they needed to respond more effectively in their own communities.
Now, one component of it that I hadn't thought of, and as I read your bio, this occurred to me, Tyler. When you worked with, I guess not with the Department of Homeland Security and FEMA, but one of the things that you did was to write curriculum that related to religious and cultural competency in disasters. Talk about how important that is when we're dealing with a disaster.
Right. So as you all can imagine, when we have something of the scale like Hurricane Sandy hitting a major urban area like New York City, there's literally hundreds of thousands of people who are affected, and those hundreds of thousands of people are hailing from hundreds of countries and are often speaking many languages and come from a variety of religious traditions. And so the curriculum we started putting together with another nonprofit called the National Disaster Interfaiths Network was really focused on providing effective services to those diverse communities. And it's not something that's about political correctness or catering to sort of small personal needs at the individual level. What this is about is providing better services and meeting people's needs as it relates to their cultural background or their religious background. So, and those things have huge implications when you're talking about providing food after a disaster or providing clothing or providing shelter. It's really about respect and providing communities with what they need. And so I worked as a consultant with the National Disaster Interfaiths Network to develop this curriculum for FEMA so that when FEMA teams came in from all over the country, they'd be better prepared to work with and respond to the local needs in the communities they're going to be working with.
Now, Tyler, when you stepped into the role as executive director here, a major disaster had just occurred. So talk about the earthquake in Nepal and how immense it was, and what your organization did after that happened.
Sure. So what happened in Nepal is certainly something it was probably our largest scale disaster response to date. We were very fortunate in the case of Nepal because we had a team, sort of an affiliate team that we had been working with called Kathmandu Living Labs, and their executive director actually sits on our board of directors. So we had been mapping Nepal for 2 years before the earthquake happened. And what that allowed us to do is, when the earthquake happened, we weren't starting from a blank slate. So we weren't starting from a blank place on the map, and we already had large areas of Kathmandu mapped out. And so essentially, when the earthquake hit, within a few hours, we had several activators on our team begin to mobilize HOT and begin to mobilize our thousands of volunteers from around the world. And we had about, for Nepal in particular, we had about 8,000 people from all over the world. And these are people that are, you have students and teenagers all the way up to people in their 60s and 70s and retirees, all working together to look at satellite imagery and to map areas of Nepal that hadn't been mapped before. So a lot of our mapping focused, we did supplement what was done in Kathmandu already, but we focused also on the more rural areas where there weren't very good maps existing. And if you know anything about Nepal, you'll know that it's quite mountainous, and the terrain is really difficult. A lot of areas are only accessible by footpath or by mountain crossings. And what the team did is, by creating these maps, it enabled the relief agencies who were working in the area to figure out which areas were most affected and how to better route supplies and people to those areas.
So, Tyler, this is pretty fascinating to me, because you can imagine going to the coast of Mexico or maybe Nepal and having bad maps. But when we think about the United States, we think, that every square inch of it has been mapped by Google at some point. Is that true to a great degree? Do you still have to work in the United States on some projects? And have you caught the attention of an organization like Google?
Yeah, absolutely. So the majority of our work is focused in vulnerable areas around the world where we don't have good maps existing. So a lot of times that does take us outside the U.S., but it's interesting to note that there are many places, even within the U.S., that are not very well mapped out. You might look at a small town in Google and see that, some of the main streets are there, but a lot of the back roads and side roads aren't there. And another thing that OpenStreetMap brings into the picture is that it's not only maps of streets, as our name might suggest, but it's also maps. Maps include each individual building or home, so you can actually count. You can do analysis and count, for example, how many homes were in a disaster-affected area, or what the population density might look like in an area. So we bring a whole other level of detail that doesn't exist with Google. And the other thing to point out is that Google does provide some amazing maps here in the US and also in many cities around the world, but many times the areas that are most well mapped are the areas that there's an economic interest in mapping. And so the work that our team's doing is kind of focusing on those areas where there might not be that inherent interest to have a really detailed map of the area, and that's where we come in to help put those areas on the map even before disaster happens. And we have a partnership called Missing Maps, and the Missing Maps project is a collaboration between our organization, the American Red Cross, British Red Cross, and MSF, Doctors Without Borders, to help work and put those areas on the map before a disaster happens. But to get back to your question, Bill, we did do some, if you remember a little while back, there was a typhoon that was approaching Guam and some of the areas nearby, and we did, for example, because those do fall within the U.S. and happen to be not very well mapped out, we did actually coordinate with FEMA on that and had sort of a joint team working on mapping those areas. And so there's definitely much better coverage in the U.S., but there's still plenty of areas that could use more detail added to the map.
Well, Tyler, today is, of course, Cyber Monday. Tomorrow's Giving Tuesday. I'm sure your organization bases a lot of what it does on fundraising. So how can our listeners help tomorrow when Giving Tuesday comes along?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. As you mentioned, we are a largely volunteer-led organization, and we rely on grants and donations from our members and from our community. So as you mentioned, Bill, tomorrow is Giving Tuesday. It's a global day to give back to those nonprofits that you care about, and we'd love to have the listeners tonight just take a look at our page. It's called donate.hotosm.org. That's donate.hotosm.org. And if you look at that page, there's a video about the work we do. I encourage everyone to just take a look at the video, and regardless of whether you're able to donate or not, of course, we love your donation, but we'd also love to get you involved in our mapping as well. And that's something that anybody can do. We often say that anyone capable of using a web browser can help out. So really, we'd love to have even 10 minutes or 30 minutes of your time in helping to do some mapping for us. And you can see what needs to be mapped at another website. It's called tasks.hotosm.org. That's tasks.hotosm.org. And you can see all the different projects that we're working on right now that need help.
I can see Brian Peters' feverish fingers over there already heading to the site to get started. So that's really awesome stuff that you guys are doing. It was really fascinating to me. It's been fun to learn about it. Tyler, anything else you need to share with us before we put you to bed tonight so you can get to Indonesia tomorrow?
No, I just want to say thank you for having me on tonight, and I learned a bit myself, so thanks very much, and look forward to talking to you all again in the future.
Well, maybe you could drop me an email and let me know what you learned so we can make sure we repeat it, because we're not sure that anybody's ever learned anything from this show in the 10 years we've been doing it. So,
well,
if you got something interesting from us, that would be good.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. Yeah, thanks very much.
Well, Tyler,
Phil.
stay in
It's great
touch.
to be here.
And we'll have you back again sometime. Thank you very much.
All right, take care and have a good night.
You too. All right, Willie Dry.
Hi, Bill.
Are you there?
Yes, sir.
It's discombobulating not being able to see you, Willie.
Well, it's probably doing your viewers a favor, Bill. But the only thing that annoys me is that I went and shaved a couple hours ago so I would look good, and that was a wasted effort. So, but anyway, here we are. So,
well, Brian Peters said that 10 years ago, and he's never shaved since. So it's probably wasted effort anyway. But anyway, it's good to have you back on the show, Willie, and tell us about the new book.
Well, it's called For Sale, American Paradise, and it is about, as you mentioned, the Florida land boom of the 1920s. It focuses on a very unusual period in American history when millions of Americans thought that they were going to become rich and extremely rich simply by buying a few acres of land in Florida and selling it for an enormous profit to the next people who came along. In a way, though, it really is a book, I think, about the American dream. I mean, what is more American than looking for a better life and working really hard and being rewarded and seeing your effort pay off? And that is what people were doing in Florida in the 1920s. We were coming out of a terrible war. World War I killed, I think it was 10 million people, maybe more than that. People were horrified by the death toll in World War I. They wanted to have fun. They wanted to forget about the horror that they had experienced. And so that sort of gave birth to the Roaring Twenties. There was prosperity everywhere. And we also had emerging technologies, radio, automobiles, mass circulation magazines, modern advertising techniques, and the entire culture was changing. I believe before World War I, it took something like 9 yards of clothing to make a typical everyday dress outfit for a woman to wear. In the 1920s, I think it was something like 3 yards. So things were changing dramatically in every aspect. And Florida was, at the start of the 20s, it really was kind of a wild, it was more of an idea for a state, really, than it was an actual state. It was still very much developing, and plus it had the tropical atmosphere. It's the only tropical region in the U.S., I believe. So millions of people focused on that, and this book tells the story of that experience, and it's told largely through the eyes of a young journalist in Stuart, Florida, named Edwin Menninger, who came down to, he bought a newspaper. He sort of served as both a participant and an observer of the land boom, sort of like the Greek chorus of ancient times. He would participate in the real estate speculation and the boom that was going on, and then he would step back and make comments. And so the story is told largely through his eyes, but it also has American icons like the Marx Brothers, Babe Ruth, William Jennings Bryan, and lots of other household names of that era. So obviously, I'm a little biased, but I think it's a fascinating story.
Well, that is a fascinating period of history, and you mentioned the World War I may have been the impetus for all the excesses of the age, but might have been also contributed to by technology. I think that is a fascinating time leading up to the crash in 1929 and the depression that followed, for sure. But there are hurricanes that played an important role in all of this. Willie, talk about how those shaped and influenced the land boom and caused it to to transition to what it became.
Well, there are two very well-known hurricanes from that period, two infamous storms, I guess you'd say. The 1926 hurricane that hit Miami and the 1928 hurricane that devastated Lake Okeechobee. But there were other weather events, other hurricanes that played sort of a supporting role, I guess you could say. In July 1926, a very powerful hurricane formed down in the Caribbean and struck Nassau in the Bahamas and really devastated the Bahamas and started heading towards Florida. This storm eventually developed winds of 140 miles an hour. But as it approached Florida, it weakened, and the worst part of the storm, I believe, stayed offshore. And the worst that Miami saw was 80-mile-an-hour winds. And the reason that this is significant is because it gave all of the newcomers in Miami, and there were thousands of newcomers who had never seen a hurricane. There were thousands of newcomers who thought that they had seen the worst that a hurricane could do. And of course, they were tragically wrong, and this contributed to them not really taking seriously the threat that came their way a couple months later when the awful 1926 hurricane came ashore in September 1926. The 1926 hurricane, of course, every meteorologist, I guess, every student of Florida history is very familiar with that storm. It came ashore, I believe, as a Category 4 storm. It pretty much razed Miami Beach and did tremendous damage in Miami. And a lot of people say that this hurricane, this is a hurricane that ended the Florida land boom. And in retrospect, that is true. This really did kind of start things tumbling downhill for the land boom. But the point that I made in the book is that at that time, they didn't know that the land boom was over. They thought that things were going to return, that good times were going to return. The Tamiami Trail was about to open that would link Tampa and Miami. They thought that that was going to bring the return of good times. And so they didn't really see it as the 1926 hurricane ending the land boom. The 1928 hurricane, of course, was a catastrophic storm. At one time, I believe it was Category 5 hurricane. I think it came ashore as a Category 4. I've read reports that it may have reached Category 5 intensity around Lake Okeechobee, but I don't know that that information may be outdated. It pushed a big wall of water out of Lake Okeechobee and killed thousands of people and horrified the rest of the nation. And that really was kind of the death knell of the land boom. But another hurricane that came ashore in August of 1928 was a major contributing factor to that. This storm came ashore between Fort Pierce and Vero Beach, and it was a very strong Category 2 storm, and it dumped a lot of rainfall in and around Lake Okeechobee, so that it sort of set up the catastrophe for the September 1928 storm. Lake Okeechobee was dangerously high at the time the September 1928 storm came in, and it was contributed to the tragedy by just overfilling the lake. And then I'm sorry, I'm jumping around here a little bit. There was another storm that followed the September 1926 hurricane. In October 1926, Miami was extremely lucky again. There was a very powerful hurricane that formed off of Nicaragua, and it bombed out around October the 19th. The wind speeds went from 90 miles an hour to around 140 miles an hour in about 18 hours, and it devastated Havana. There was the quote, one of the quotes that I used from a survivor of that storm. Fishing boats floated down streets, dead cows dropped out of the sky, houses flew overhead like birds. There were 650 people killed and 125 were injured. The storm headed more or less towards Miami, and Miamians knew that the storm was coming their way, and there was, as you can imagine, great anxiety in the city. But at the last minute, it veered away, and Key West got 100-mile-an-hour winds, but the worst that Miami got was about 80 miles an hour, which was bad, but certainly not what it could have been. So those are some of the hurricanes that are mentioned in the book. It's kind of a rogues gallery of hurricanes, I guess you could say. One other storm I wanted to mention very quickly, if I could, 1924. Among the characters in the book is a group of bandits called the Ashley Gang. They robbed banks and robbed trains and made moonshine in the Everglades. And they eluded lawmen for years. And there was a hurricane in October of 1924, came ashore, dumped a lot of rain on Florida, sort of flushed them out of their hideout, and allowed the cops to catch them at the bridge over the Sebastian River north of Vero Beach, and they were gunned down there that night. This was, in the pantheon of hurricanes, this is a minor event, but I thought it was interesting that a hurricane finally had some contribution to catching this, this notorious gang of bandits that had kind of preyed on South Florida during the early part of the land boom.
Yeah, that was a fascinating story for sure. One person I didn't see mentioned as prominently in the book as I thought. Maybe in my speed reading I might have missed it. Willie was Flagler. Talk about him for a minute.
Well, Flagler is mentioned in one of the earlier chapters. Henry Flagler built the railroad that pretty much opened up, sort of created Florida as we know it, I guess. He eventually pushed the railroad all the way down Key West, and his method was to build the railroad down the east coast of Florida, and he built hotels along the way. Flagler was a fascinating man. He amassed one of the great fortunes of the late 19th and early 20th centuries with his business partner Rockefeller in the Standard Oil Company. But Flagler was the son of a poor minister, and he was very, very disciplined. He was very strict on himself. He had very old-fashioned ideas about the proper use of money. And maybe I'm mispronouncing this. I think we might once have called it noblesse oblige. I believe it is the obligations of those who are fortunate to help those less fortunate. Flagler thought the only proper use of money was to better the community around him, and to use the money for self-gratification, in Flagler's opinion, was really not the proper way to use it. So, ironically, of course, he set up exactly that kind of thing with his railroad that started bringing folks to Florida where they could enjoy their newfound wealth and use their money in a way that Flagler probably would not have appreciated. He died in 1913, I think it was, so he was gone by the time all of the all of the foolishness came to Florida.
He would pass out today if he saw what it looked like now, wouldn't he?
Oh, goodness.
You know, I think it's interesting, Willie, to go back and look at the hurricanes of 1926, and it was a fairly average hurricane season with 11 storms. But, you know, it underscores the fact that it only takes one major one to make a really big problem. And that 1926 September hurricane that hit Miami and went on to hit the Mississippi Gulf Coast was quite a doozy.
That was a very bad storm. It also gave Pensacola quite a kick as well.
And Mobile.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fascinating to look too. Those storms were mainly homegrown, so it probably, I don't know if 1926 was an El Nino year, and I don't know if there's a climatologist that can tell us that or not, but most of those storms were homegrown. They were grown close to the United States. Hey, John. And so, you know, it's definitely kind of had a look like this hurricane season, sort of.
Yes, it did. I believe it would have maybe have been, just in terms of numbers, I guess it would have been very close to the same thing. One other weather incident here, since we're talking about weather, if I can deviate from hurricanes just a little bit. In 1925, St. Petersburg hosted an investment bankers convention, and they were hoping to sell St. Petersburg and bring in lots of money to Florida and to their city. And they were what they hoped to sell was sunshine. There was a newspaper in St. Petersburg at that time called the Evening Independent, and St. Petersburg was so famous for its sunshine that they actually gave away free copies of their papers on the days when the sun didn't shine. But unfortunately, when these hundreds of very wealthy, very influential investment bankers came to St. Petersburg, the sun didn't shine, and it was December of 1925. So the bankers left St. Petersburg not very impressed with what they had seen, and that's another example of how weather had a significant influence on the events of that period, because that week of lousy weather, of cold, rainy weather in December, undoubtedly cost St. Petersburg millions of dollars. Came at the worst possible time.
And probably made a lot of investment bankers unhappy about 30 years later when the state really took off, for sure. So, yeah, I think it's interesting to look at, not only factors like that, but I'm sure factors like the Ashley Gang and Al Capone had a negative impact on tourism too, and this Wild West kind of feeling that Florida had in the day, Willie.
Yeah, it was the way that I saw the story in one of the themes that I developed. The land boom was sort of bookended by the Ashley Gang on one end and Al Capone on the other. The Ashley Gang, of course, were homegrown bootleggers and bank robbers and train robbers, but they were really just kind of a bunch of, in a way, they were just kind of rowdy Florida boys, But when they were finally eliminated by 1927, Al Capone had gotten wind of what was going on in Florida, and he bought a place down there, and it must have been terrifying in a way for the cops who had been dealing with criminals at the level of the Ashley Gang, to be facing someone like Al Capone with the wealth and organization and muscle that he had. They just had to have felt that they were outgunned and outmanned and overmatched on this. But Capone became very fond of Miami and of Florida, and he eventually died there. After he got out of prison, he did a term in prison for income tax evasion, and after he was released from prison, he went back to Miami and died in the house eventually that he bought there in 1926, I think it was. No, I'm sorry, 1927. Anyway, he was very fond of Florida, but he was making a lot of people there rather nervous about his presence.
So Willie, what's your next book? What's going to be the next topic you attack?
I don't know yet. I sort of want to take a breather from this one. I will be. I am working on a second edition of Storm of the Century, the Labor Day Hurricane of 1935. My agent and I have found some serious interest in putting out a new edition of this book. So I'm putting together, working on a revised version of it. We're going to have a little more information, a little bit more information that was not in the original book. And I'm hoping that we'll get that out sometime in 2016.
Good. Okay, guys. Well, thank you, Willie. We're going to take a quick break here, and we're going to do Professor Peters. We've got Tony Rice and the Astronomy Report. We'll come back with the Weather Roundup, the picks of the week, and much more as WeatherBrains rolls along.
WeatherBrains 101 with Professor Peters.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but that classic image of a tear-shaped raindrop is just not true. High in the atmosphere, water collects on dust and smoke particles in clouds. Raindrops start to form in a roughly spherical structure due to the surface tension of water. This surface tension is the skin of a body of water that makes the molecules stick together. The cause is the weak hydrogen bonds that occur between water molecules. On smaller raindrops, the surface tension is stronger than that of larger drops. The reason is the flow of air around the drop. But as a raindrop falls, it loses that round shape. The raindrop becomes more like the top half of a hamburger bun, flat on the bottom with a slightly curved dome top. So a raindrop is anything but that classic tear shape. The reason for this shape comes from their speed falling through the atmosphere. Airflow on the bottom of the water drop is greater than the flow at the top. At the top, small air circulation disturbances create less air pressure. The surface tension at the top allows the raindrop to remain more spherical, while the bottom gets more flattened out. And this is why dual polarization in the Doppler radar network is so important at getting a better handle on raindrop size by measuring both horizontally and vertically, and thus arriving at better rainfall estimates. As a raindrop falls, it will often collide with other raindrops, allowing a drop to increase in size. Once the size of a raindrop becomes too large, the drop will break apart into smaller drops. This time, the surface tension loses and the large raindrop ceases to exist. Instead, it pulls apart when it grows to around 4 millimeters or more. Another element to the complexity of our atmosphere. If you have a question about the weather, drop an email to question@weatherbrains.com.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your Astronomy Outlook.
This week, Jupiter, Mars, and Venus line up overnight. Such a lineup really isn't that unusual, but if you take a look each morning, you'll see the moon travel through that trio of planets, nearly touching each throughout the weekend. Conjunctions, the apparent close approach of two or more celestial objects, are an easy astronomy event to spot. They're also great for impressing your friends with your knowledge of the night sky. So remember these. As the crescent moon rises shortly after 1 a.m. on Friday morning, look up and to the right, about 2 degrees away. Jupiter and the moon will continue to be visible all night and will be highest in the sky just before dawn. It's Mars' turn on Sunday morning, as an even thinner crescent moon will be led by the red planet by less than 3 degrees, rising around 3 a.m. Venus will have her turn early Monday morning, also leading the rising moon around 4 a.m. That last conjunction of the moon with Venus may be the easiest one to see. At sunrise, a sliver of moon will point towards the bright Venus in the eastern sky. Venus is so bright you will likely be able to see both for about an hour or so after sunrise. That's your Astronomy Outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
When the weather ball is red, warmer weather is ahead. When the weather ball is white, colder weather is in sight. When the weather ball is green, no change in the weather is foreseen. When colors blink, a night or day, precipitation's on the way.
Time to talk weather around the nation for the end of November, November 30th, 2015. And I guess really the headline has got to be Rick, your ice event out in Oklahoma.
Yeah, it was. We've had much worse ice storms, but if you've been out without power since Friday night, Saturday morning, it's bad enough. So,
Rick, is it that odd to have an ice storm that significant so early in the season, or is that to be expected in Oklahoma?
It's not unheard of, but typically they are later in the season. Some of our worst ones have been in January and February, so it's not common to have them. What made this event even more unusual for our office is we were working not only a significant ice storm, but in southeast Oklahoma, we had flash flood watches, and we actually had some overlap there. One row of counties that was in a flash flood watch and an ice storm warning at the same time. So
that's not good. That's
not
bad.
good. Either one of those is bad. But we had there, and this has gotten kind of overlooked. Since we talked last week, there's places in southeast Oklahoma that have had close to 10 inches of rain in the last 7 days, and most of that happened over the Thanksgiving holiday. So, we were looking today at the office. There's places down there that have had 77 inches of rain, which is just 2 inches shorter than Kevin Durant from the Oklahoma City Thunder. So
they're starting to measure the rain in NBA players in Oklahoma.
You know it's bad when you're measuring it by NBA players. Absolutely.
Wow. So we got a pretty good snowstorm going on now in parts of the Midwest, parts of Minnesota and South Dakota, Iowa, Nebraska getting some good snow, and the Southeast has been relatively warm or mild. Notice Brian's in his tank top and flip-flops this evening. Brian, you look good there.
Absolutely. It was warm today, 74 at my house.
Uh-oh. Brian, I have a message for you.
Have you tried?
Yeah, I know.
It's off and on again. Off and on again.
Yeah, but I don't know who sent that. Somebody, so a listener sent that to us, and boy, does it come in handy. Now Brian's got to reset his audio adapter there, or mic or something. But no, we've been pretty warm. We had Montgomery, Alabama, I think, hit 80 today on this 30th of November. And let's go. Somebody here, I don't know who our tropical expert is, but this is the end of the Atlantic hurricane season. So, as I can tell, the outlook worked out pretty well.
Yeah, it was pretty close.
Yeah.
Slow season. From a not from a name storm standpoint, but from a hurricanes and major hurricane standpoint.
I'm going to pull up the numbers here.
Montgomery did hit 80 today.
Okay, wow. We had 11 named storms, 4 hurricanes, 2 major hurricanes. And again, not a single hurricane strike for Florida. They have gone 10 years, and we have gone 10 years nationally without a major hurricane making landfall on the United States coast. How long can this go, guys? I mean, at some point, that's just stunning. I mean, typically you might go a year or two, and you think that's kind of a long stretch, but 10 years. The last was Wilma in October of 2015. So pretty remarkable, but we'll see. Of course, El Nino's still kicking, and goodness, it looks like. By the way, did you guys see the snow in Denver on television last night, the Sunday night football game?
Yeah.
That's good for the ski resorts in Colorado right there when you get that national advertising.
Yeah, love the snow games, but that was fantastic. So, and coming up, it looks like there's not going to be any big Arctic intrusion, I'd say, for the next 15 days, as the upper air winds will not allow a cross-polar flow to develop, and looks like December is going to start off relatively mild for much of the country. We'll see how long that lasts. Of course, you've had these doomsday winter outlooks from everybody saying it's cold and ice and snow, and I don't know. Traditionally, these El Nino winters where we are in the southern states, they tend to be fairly mild, wet, stormy, and occasionally you might get a crack at an ice storm like Rick had there. But we'll see. We obviously meteorological winter begins tomorrow. And in terms of astronomy, the solstice is still about 3 weeks away, so we'll just have to wait and see. But it's time now for Picks of the Week, ladies and gentlemen. Time now where we go around the horn and we share something that is weather-related. This can be a book, hardware, software, website, anything remotely related to that. So Let's. Kevin's here. Kevin, do you have a pick of
Hello.
the week for us?
You're talking about no cold air, but we're about to go. Rick just put parts of our area under a freezing fog advisory.
Ooh.
Well, yeah.
I'm excited. What are we doing? Picks of the week?
Yeah, lay one on us.
Pay attention, Kevin. Pay attention.
It was that thing I mentioned earlier, the Weather Channel's new show. It's a press release announcement is the link, but their new online show that's going right to their mobile app, the Weather Channel app, and it's I watched it. They somehow time they look at your time zone, and I think it's between 6 and 11 o'clock. They've got a little group of 4 or 5 short video things that you can get right on your phone in the morning. It's called The Lift. Al Roker fronts 1 or 2 of them, and 2 other people do, I guess, most of the heavy lifting. But I just thought it was interesting because it was what Dave Clark was talking about, in that they're going to go direct to people rather than trying to do everything through the cable television channel.
Cool. And again, we'll have a link up to this on weatherbrains.com. Chasing a rabbit very quickly. When you had the severe weather in your market, how did that go, Kevin? You haven't done that in a while. How'd it go? Your coverage.
Let's see. I've been sick and I've slept since then, so I'm trying to remember. Was that 2 weeks ago?
It's the 16th.
The 16th. I'm totally blanking. I guess it was fine. Oh, I remember. That was that little skinny, fast-moving line that got here later than we. Was that the one, Rick?
Yeah.
No, I was
out in the Panhandle.
Yeah, no, that's right. It wasn't much for us. We just kind of rolled through and watched it come. You know what I've observed here that's different than being in Dallas-Fort Worth is there's a number of little small towns in the western. I'm kind of in the central portion of my DMA, and there's a bunch of little towns in the western half, and there is just literally a whole lot of nothing in between each one, as Rick can attest. Yeah. That line, the winds were stacked pretty good. There was a little directional shear, but they were stacked pretty good from just off the deck all the way up. You know, we're getting 50, 60 knots. So some of that came down with some of those thunderstorms. But a couple of warnings flew as it came through here, through Wichita Falls, and I think it was just largely because we did get a little power outages and a couple of tree limbs down and things here and there. But it's just tough to call on these wide open areas until it gets into a town. So from here and then to the east and northeast, I think, is when we had our warnings now that I'm remembering. But I've been sick and I've slept since then. Did I mention that?
You mentioned that about 5 times. In fact, I think Kevin's asleep right now.
Is that somewhat accurate, Rick?
Yeah, I think so.
You guys got more of it up there, though, right?
Yeah, it was more north of you, maybe on the northeast side of your DMA, and then up into central.
Hey, Rick, give us a quick summary of the tornado tracks that you found out there.
Well, there were some significant long track tornadoes for any time of the year. These are big time tornadoes for May, but when you combine what Amarillo had in their CWA and what we had, there were at least 3 long track tornadoes. We had one that crossed from the Panhandle into northwest Oklahoma, one that crossed from northwest Oklahoma into southern Kansas. So we had, again, thank goodness. I mean, anything that they hit, it's bad, but they avoided. If the track of one of these tornadoes had been 10 to 15 miles further to the north, it would have followed a highway through Shattuck and Woodward and towns that we've heard that have been hit over and over again by tornadoes. So we dodged another bullet, but these were big time nasty tornadoes. It would have been rated much higher. We had an EF2 in our area was the maximum. It could have easily been a 4 or more had it hit a more densely populated area. Fortunately, it didn't.
And for you and Kevin, where we are, this is the core of our late fall tornado season, November, December. How unusual is it to have this type of an outbreak for you this time of the year?
I'll let Rick handle that one because this is really only I've just finished my first year here.
You're a noob.
Yeah. This is unusual any time of the year, but you know, there's a lot of people that didn't. We don't get as many November tornadoes as you guys do over there. I grew up in Memphis, so I know, you know, that's you kind of expect that November, December over there. We've had some bad tornadoes in November. 2011, we had a EF4 down not too far north of where Kevin is. So it happens, but it's not. I mean, we do have a little bump, a little secondary season bump in October and November, but it's not nearly as pronounced as what you have over in the southeast.
Yeah, and it looks like for us, we're going to make it through without any big problems again. I have a funny feeling the spring might be active, but we'll just have to wait and see. All right, Rick. So what's your pick of the week?
I'm gonna sneak a pick and a half in. This first thing's not a pick, but I promised I would mention this. A lot of us on here are amateur radio operators. This coming Friday, December the 5th, starting at 6 p.m. and going 24 hours till December 6th at 6 p.m. or 0Z to 0Z the 5th to 0Z the 6th is the annual National Weather Service Skywarn Recognition Day, where there's going to be stations set up at numerous Weather Service offices around the country, and you can get on HF and other bands and make contacts and get cool QSL cards from the different Weather Service offices. So that's I don't have a link for that. Google it. My real pick of the week is related back to the ice storm. Our partners at the Oklahoma Mesonet put together an awesome little video. It's 19 seconds long, but it's dense with information. This is a 4-day summary showing the ice storm happening. You can see the radar echoes. You can see the freezing line. There's a white line that wavers back and forth. That's the freezing line. You can see the precipitation set up just on the north side of that. And what's really cool, if you really look, there's wind barbs for each Mesonet station. What happens around here, one of the ways we can tell it's icing is when we lose the wind data at the Mesonet stations, because those sensors freeze up. So you can see the wind barbs disappearing as things ice up in northwest Oklahoma. It's really cool. It's 19 seconds. You'll probably want to watch it 10 or 15 times.
Rick, we've got our own version of that. Our own version of that here, because we're at our tower site, I think, as I've mentioned before, and there's a fun side to that and a dark side to that. When it's really windy, especially just above the deck, you can tell by how the wind is howling through the tower and the noise it makes, and you can kind of get a sense of how fast the winds just off the surface are, and how strong they are, how quickly they're blowing. The dark side is that we get ice on the tower, and I've got a picture here, and I just tweeted it on my Twitter account as well. This is one of our news vehicles over the weekend. The tower ices up, and then eventually it comes down.
Okay, I've got to show you this one. We're going to compare.
I'm a step ahead of you. I'm a step ahead of you. There we go.
This is from the Fox 25 station in Oklahoma City. Can you guys see this?
Yeah. I've got it up on mine, Rick.
Okay.
I was pulling mine up while you were pulling yours up.
Is that from this event?
There was a guy sitting in the car. He got to work at 4 a.m. and he was sitting in the car, and a chunk of ice fell off the tower and hit that car. So scary stuff.
It's pretty terrifying, because we were training a fill-in person here, and I was here on Sunday as that stuff was coming down, and it's rather terrifying. It sounds like somebody's just standing out in the backyard lobbing bricks up onto the roof. It really does, and it was continuous. It was really quite
we had an ice storm in my market in 1982, and at the time, Kevin, I worked at 13, which is on Red Mountain, and the towers are by the studio, like you, and they had to take us. They closed off Valley Avenue, the road underneath the towers, to all traffic, and they had to bring us up there in these vans with these reinforced steel roofs, because of ice falling off those towers. And it's horrifying. And those pictures you guys are showing, somebody could have gotten really hurt badly or killed.
It is. A friend of mine, he was a producer in Richmond when I was there many, many years ago, but he was also a firefighter, and we had one of those self-supporting towers on property. And they made him go out to move some of the live trucks when it started falling from underneath the tower. But he had on his helmet and his big heavy fireman's coat and still caught one on the shoulder, and I think when the weather's right, it still bothers him to this day. So it's quite something. I mean, it's neat from the standpoint that it's kind of a profiler. We always used to know in Richmond, you get that cold air damming, you get it high up over New England, and the east wind coming off the water, you get that cold air damming. But we used to be able to tell when that was finally starting to scour out, which the models never got, because it's real shallow, but you could tell when that was starting to scour out, when the ice started coming down off the tower.
Wow. That's creepy stuff. And another thing, too, I remember we had roof damage that was so severe they had to totally do a whole new roof to the building. I mean, it was just you could literally look up and see blue sky in the studio. I mean, and this was a catastrophic ice storm. This was an anomaly. This is not your run-of-the-mill ice storm, but boy, that was just nasty. And it brought down a broadcast tower, collapsed on top of the highest point in our state, which is Chehaw State Park. And we're in the foothills of the Appalachians here. The elevation up there is 2,407 feet. And people were complaining that they couldn't hear weather radio in that part of the state. And nobody could figure it out. Finally, the guy that was up there at the park called the weather service and said, I know why people can't hear weather radio. The tower's gone.
That'll do it. You might want to come put it back up.
Yeah, and it just collapsed because of the weight of the ice. I mean, it's amazing what happens with this. Ice storms are just nasty, so that's crazy stuff. All right, Brian Peters, what's your pick of the week?
I ran across an interesting blog that has some snowflake photography in it. And snowflakes are just absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, you got to get, really close. What macro, micro,
right.
Whatever you call it.
And the nice part about this, not only are there great pictures, he actually has some explanation of how he made his equipment or, kind of piece things together. I think there's some baling wine and some duct tape involved.
Wow. All right, so Willie, we've stalled as long as we can to give you time to think of a great pick of the week. So Willie, the floor belongs to you.
Okay, thank you, Jim. I would like to, if I may, mention a couple of Facebook sites. My friend down in Florida, meteorologist Rob Jones, has posted photos of that Havana hurricane of October 1926 that I mentioned earlier. And that is at facebook.com/Hurricane Rob Jones. That's ROBJONES. And he's got some interesting photos of the damage that was done to that hurricane. As a baseball fan, one of the most heartbreaking photos I saw was a beautiful old baseball park down there that had been destroyed by that hurricane. And one other thing I'd like to mention, if I may, I'll be posting links to a couple of things I've got coming up related to the book on my Facebook page. On Thursday, December 3rd, I'll be talking with my friend Bill Benjamin here on WPNC Radio here in Plymouth about the book. That'll be sometime around 9:10 a.m. Thursday morning. I'll be posting a link for that. Anybody wants to listen online. And then on December 7th, I'll be doing an hour-long interview on WLRN in Miami, which is Miami's NPR station. And I will be fielding phone calls from listeners, so I'll really be sticking my neck out there. So it might be fun. You might want to listen in. But those are the two that I would like to mention. And those photos that Rob posted on his website are very interesting. Somehow that hurricane that hit Havana was off of my radar until I started doing the research for this book. And it did not have a major influence on Florida, but it certainly did cause some problems in Havana. So it might be worth a look for hurricane aficionados out there.
Cool, and we'll get a link to these up on the website, Willie. If you can send Brian or drop it in the chat room, the links there if you got them, and he can put them at the show notes. All right, Bill Murray, what you got for us?
Yeah, James, usually I get cookies and warm milk and things, when I'm doing the show from my children. Tonight I'm getting NyQuil and Mucinex.
Ladies and gentlemen, NyQuil is the Baptist
show
bourbon.
Title.
That's what I was brought tonight, NyQuil and Mucinex. But my pick is Willie's book. I'm just very lucky that he didn't pick his own book. For Sale, American Paradise, How Our Nation Was Sold, An Impossible Dream. I'm
going to get my own bandwidth, and I'm going to bring it in here, and this won't be a problem. Sorry, guys, we had a bandwidth drop. But, Bill, go ahead. What's your pick of the week?
My pick of the week is Willie's book. Thank goodness he didn't pick his own book. For Sale, The American Paradise, How Our Nation Was Sold, An Impossible Dream in Florida. Thanks for the advance copy, Willie. It was a great read, and I really enjoyed that. Kept me company today while I was lying in bed sick. And we're booked out to February 1st on the guest. Next week, a real fun show with Jim Gandy from Columbia. He's been doing weather on WLTX there for 40 years. And he's going to be our guest, Weather Brain. We'll talk about Vortex Southeast the following week. We'll look forward to Joe Bastardi on Tuesday, January the 12th, after Alabama beats Oklahoma in the national championship game, Rick.
For those who don't speak cold, that was Joe Bastardi, not Joe Boostardi.
I'm taking my NyQuil now. Good night, everyone.
Yeah, Bill is, we're losing him here. So my pick, I got to play this. I love playing this song. This has got to be the greatest fight song in the college world. My pick. I wrote an essay, and I felt like I needed to write that. I got into three things you should never get in public, really, if you're trying to avoid controversy: climate, politics, and religion.
Uh-oh.
That is yes, that is the name of the essay. That is, I was apparently on NyQuil. I'd been drinking a lot of the Baptist bourbon and just no, they got this thing going on in France, and I've just seen so much of the social media stuff. I mean, it's beyond just sniping. It's beyond sassiness. I mean, this is just hate. Where both sides of this thing, they're just hating on each other. I mean, it's nasty, and so I don't like to talk about it, but I just dabbled in it, and I wrote that, and it's on medium.com, but there'll be a link to that up on the website here. So, but no, and if we look at these guests, we've got Gandy coming in here, and Gandy is a very big proponent of catastrophic anthropogenic global warming. You got Bastardi coming in here, who's just the opposite. He believes that the primary.
We should have him on the same week.
Yeah, Joe believes the primary climate driver is natural variability, we've had the buzzer on here, and the reason I blow the buzzer whenever we say climate change or global warming, the same thing happens on this show. It brings out hate and anger and rage. The veins start coming out of people's necks, and their underwear starts flapping up and down on their legs. And the thing is, we're not going to change.
Left. What are you talking about?
We're not going to change anybody's mind on this show. We're really not. But having said that, I do think maybe from time to time we should open it up. And I love listening to different opinions. Maybe I'm just weird. It just seems like society today, we live in these echo chambers. Like, if you're a conservative, you watch Fox News. If you're a liberal, you watch MSNBC because they say the things that you like. And we don't listen to differing viewpoints. And I think we need to take a chill pill and listen to other points of view. What's wrong with that? You don't have to agree with them, but listening is a good thing for me. And I love to listen to all points of view on this thing. And I don't know, if you want to just see what's on my mind, you can read that little piece there. So, and again, I am the lead story here on the late news, so I got to wrap this one up. We are typically on the air every Monday night at 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern. Many people watch us live at the website live.bigbrainsmedia.com. There's a chat room there. Others listen. There's a good chance you're listening to this, and if you do listen, we thank you. If you listen by iTunes, we love those iTunes comments. Our show notes and all of our social media accounts are on the website weatherbrains.com. And if you want to send us an email, Aubrey Urbanowitz is our email officer. The address is email@weatherbrains.com, and we all see them. John Scala, Dr. John gives the best answers, so send us a note. And having said that, we got to wrap this thing up, so I go across the hall and do some television. So on behalf of the entire WeatherBrains crew, I'm James Spann. Thanks a lot for listening. Have a wonderful week, and God bless. All right.
I hope you feel better, Kevin. Kevin's locked on NyQuil over there.
Yeah, he passed out.
No, good you too, Bill. Hope you. I'm getting reports from other weather people, broadcast people, that it's a 12-day event. How many days are you in?
I'm only 5 in, so
I'm 6. I finally went to the doctor today, so. We'll see.
I'm thankful that germs don't come across the interwebs here. All right, guys. Thank y'all. We got to roll it. Y'all have a fun week now.
Bye.
Everybody.
Bye.